What's up guys, John from linksWell here, and we got ourselves an install video. We're going to be installing our 12.1 inch Generation 5 T-style radio into this 2022 Jeep JL Wrangler. So let's get at it, guys. So the first thing we're going to want to do is pull out that factory radio. Super simple install in this one actually when it comes to getting that factory radio out. You can use yourself a pry tool, or you just want to use your hands. You can probably do it with just your hands as well. But what we're going to do is this kick panel right here, the knee panel right above your knees, you're going to pull off just the top right corner here where it touches the climate control panel. And then from there, you're just going to unpop the climate control panel. Now again, you can use a pry tool if you wanted to get around it, but you can't actually grab the corner right here that was behind the knee panel. Pull, clip, clip, clip. Unplug your two plugs, and then it's out. Now we will be taking the push to start button off, so we will take this to the bench a little bit later because we got to pull our push to start, put it into our T-style radio, but that's a step in a couple steps. So once we've got our AC out, you can see there's two Phillips screws here holding in the plastic bezel. So we'll go ahead and take those out. And then this will snap once we've taken those screws out. This panel will snap off as well. Put that to the side, and now you can see we've got 4 Phillips screws here holding the factory radio in, so we'll go ahead and take those out. Just like that. Now you can see all the different plugs back here, so we're going to go ahead and start unplugging all of the different plugs here so that we can get our screen out. There we go, factory screen's out. So while we have this out here, let me just kind of walk through what some of these plugs are. So this red one that actually looks like an antenna is actually for your HD camera. The Jeep's got a high def camera. It's a special system. So this is actually what we'll plug into our camera module in a little bit. When it comes to AM FM, it's this big gnarly white plug here. It's the fattest coax. This is your AM FM antenna. Don't plug it into any of these other three because you won't get any reception. And the rest of these we are not concerned about because they are either satellite or XM or Uconnect harnesses. And then we have our mini USB. This will be used to retain our media hub down here. But let me say this now, this media hub actually, if you take it apart, has got a ton of circuitry in it that the factory radio uses in order to do the handshake when it comes to phone interface. So what happens is when a phone goes through that circuitry and our circuitry, the resistance and the voltage and all of that stuff is not within the right tolerance, so your phone will not handshake using that hub. So if you want to do it, you can pull this hub out and take it apart and physically mount our USB in there so that it looks factory, but just know the factory hubs here, just because of the circuitry that's in them, will prevent you from being able to use this for CarPlay or Android Auto. Now with Gen 5, it's not as big of a deal because Gen 5 has wireless Android Auto and wireless CarPlay. Generation 4, it was a bigger deal because you had to plug in. But just know that factory hub is not going to work for your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. But that's as simple as it is to get that factory radio out. So we're going to go ahead and take our AC panel back to a table real quick, pull off that push to start button, put it into our T-style radio, and then we will look at where we're going to plug things in, run microphones, and all of that good stuff. So let's head to the table. Okay, so you can see right here, you've got 3 5.5 millimeter bolts that are holding on the push to start, and then you can see on our T-style we have matching 3 holes. So we're just going to literally take these 3 holes, or these 3 screws out. 1, 2, 3, just like that, 3 screws. Our button's going to slide out, and then what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and bring over our T-style, line up the switch just like that, and put those screws back in. So there you go. You can see our push to start button has now been installed. Next thing we want to do is we want to pull off our clips from our AC panel here, from the back of our AC panel, and you can see on the T-style radio we've got the spots for the clips. So we're going to take these clips off and put them onto our T-style bezel. You can do it with your fingers, or if you want to get a little flat blade screwdriver to kind of pry inside here to get the clip to let go, but that's what you'll do. So let's swap these over real quick. And there you have it. We are set. We've got our clips onto our T-style. We've got our push button on our T-style radio. So now what we're going to do is we're going to head into the Jeep. We're going to talk about mounting the brackets, plugging it all in, and then we'll be rocking and rolling. But before I do, I want you to notice this white plug right here. So there is a plug on the main power harness that's going to go off here to the side. Everything else will plug into the bottom of the radio. But we do want to make sure we don't forget that. Otherwise, all of your side and physical buttons aren't going to work. So let's go get in that Jeep, guys. All right, guys. So we are back in our Jeep. A couple things before we start plugging stuff in. No, it's a Jeep, and microphone placement, it's just going to be testing kind of what it is. I put mine up on the A-pillar here, kind of tucked in the corner, hoping to shield it from a lot of the wind noise, even if they take the top off. But again, it's a Jeep. You take tops off, you do things, it's going to be noisy. You might have to mess around with where you place your microphone, depending on how you drive your Jeep. So there's that. So that's ran down the A-pillar, and we have it up here behind where our radio goes. And one other thing to talk about is the AC plug here. It's down below here, but it's got to plug in with all of this. And I'm going to tell you this before we even get there. It is tight, guys. The amount of wires and everything that has to go into the back of this dash, it is a small, shallow hole. So it's going to be tight. So anywhere we can save wires from pushing against paneling, we want to do that. So what I've found when it comes to the Jeep is if you remove this this sensor here, it's just one screw, or sorry, two screws. So if we just take these two screws out, and what it does is it gives us access, hopefully you guys can see this, to this little cavern here in the side. And what we can do is we can take our AC harness and just kind of push it up in that hole so that now it's up above where all the harnesses are going to be. So what this does here is it doesn't leave a harness going up over this, because you can see these clips, there's very, very shallow here, which means our radio is going to push really close against that, and that harness going any which direction could be popping the dash out. So I just found that if we tuck this back in that way, it just will go in a little bit better. So once we've done that, we'll go ahead and remount our sensor. Of course, don't forget to remount the sensor. Otherwise, you'll at least have a rattle in your dash, or it could prevent the sensor from doing what the sensor's supposed to do. So let me mount this real quick. Okay, there we go. So now we've got pretty much everything up where it needs to be. Up here, like I said, make sure your harnesses aren't covering any of these clip points. And we are going to plug in all of our different harness adapters. So let me walk you through what I got here so you have it. So depending on your Jeep, you may have the Alpine system. Now, if you do have the Alpine system, hear me say this, guys. The Alpine system only has a left and a right input into the amp. So when you would fade with the factory radio, you actually were not fading signal, you were changing gain inside of the amp. What that means is, once you have an Alpine radio and you put in an aftermarket radio that has an analog signal, when you try to use the analog fade and you fade to the rear, you're going to lose everything, because you only have front left, front right feeding to the amplifier. So if you fade to the back and you lose all of your audio, That's what's happening, guys. Now, you can go into our radio and on vehicle, go to the vehicle settings, go to the amplifier, and you can adjust the fade inside the factory amp settings, but you will not be able to do it within our EQ, because our EQ is adjusting the fade of the analog signal, not the digital signal inside of the amplifier. So all your speakers are working, you just can't fade analog. Got me? That's probably one of the most common questions. So with that, on the power harness, you see there are 2 white females, 1 white male. So depending on whether you have Alpine, which is the high with amp, or no Alpine, which is low without amp, you will take your male and put it into the correct female. Now, it will work even backwards. So if you plug it into high and you're actually low, but what will happen is your fade will be backwards, your fronts will be rear, your rear will be front. And then if you have Alpine, then rear will be your signal. And the problem with doing it that way is Bluetooth uses front signals, so you may lose audio in Bluetooth, you may lose audio in different sources that are just gonna feed to the front signal if you're on Alpine and you're backwards, or if you're backwards and you're not with Alpine, your navigation and stuff's gonna tell you what to do from the back seat and not from the front seat. So that's what will happen there. But we're gonna go ahead and plug in our with amp, because ours is the loaded one with the factory amp. So we plug that in, you can see that right there. Now let's talk real quick about these RCAs. So you should have 2 sets of red and white RCAs on the main power harness. What these do are they will plug into our aux input. So we have a gray plug that comes with our radio that has an auxiliary input. You can see red, white, yellow, like a standard auxiliary. So 1 set of these RCAs is the audio from the factory CD player, if you had a Jeep with the factory CD player. The other 2, the red and white, are the aux input on the media. You can retain 1, so pick which one, and then plug in the red and white into the aux red and white on your aux in. So we're going to take aux, we're going to plug those in. And then the ones that say CD, you can tape them up or whatever, they're not going to connect anything. It's one or the other on there. So that's on there. Notice the white plug here for the cam box. You want to make sure you get that cam box plugged in. Let's see. And remember, I told you about the plug that went into the back of the screen. That's not with the rest. See, there's a tag right here. It says to radio. So this will plug into the radio on the bottom there, what I showed you when we were putting in the clips. We got our cam box plugged in. So the Jeep actually has 2 sides to the cam box, so make sure you find both sides to plug in the cam box. The Rams and a couple others will look like they have 2, but there's only 1 plug. The Jeep, on the other hand, does have 2 plugs, so make sure you plug that in. I'll talk just real quick, this black multi-plug. So we've got a multi-camera interface. So if you wanted to add cameras to your Jeep, so like our Jeep, we've got cameras actually looking at our axles in case we go off-road and we want to see what our clearance is. So we have a multicam interface that will actually be controlled through the touchscreen. So if you're looking for that, I'll put the model number in the video there. You can check that out. But this would be the power that you're going to plug into to that harness. And let me see if I'm missing anything else. Real quick, the camera interface box. Remember I mentioned how you have a special camera on this Jeep and it looks like an antenna plug. So you have this camera box here and there's going to be 2 yellow RCAs coming off of it. And so let me explain the 2 RCAs. They're 2 different style video signals. One is an AHD and one is a CVBS. So if you're putting in a Generation 4B or a Generation 5B, you have an AHD input because we lost the HDMI input. So we were able to get a higher grade camera input in place of the chip that we couldn't get any longer for the HDMI. So you will want to use the RCA marked AHD, and you're going to plug that into our black plug here that has your camera input. So that will be that. Now if you have a Gen 4A, or perhaps you're using our camera module for an aftermarket radio and you don't have an AHD input on your aftermarket radio, you would want CVBS. But so long as you're using a B, you want to make sure that this pink loop is cut. It should be cut because they're coming from the factory cut now, but just in case it's not cut, you want to make sure you cut the pink loop and that these wires are cut as long as you have an AHD input. And that should be the majority of what is happening here on the main harness. So let's talk some accessory harnesses. Our red plug is for our USB. Notice the one that says phone link on the red plug, USB phone link, okay? This is for Apple and most Android phones. If you're gonna plug in for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you need to use this USB. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to take apart that factory hub and mount this in the backside there, make this look like the factory one, so you can plug your phone in, use the one that says phone link, because this is the one that's going to work with Apple and Android. So this will plug in, and then we have our mini USB that will plug into the factory mini USB to retain those hubs. So if you're not taking apart those hubs and you are wanting to keep them even though they're not going to work for your phone, then you will plug into that there. So that's that accessory. We have our yellow RCA out along with our microphone input. So this is going to be where our microphone plugs in, obviously, so we can go ahead and plug in our microphone. And if we were doing any kind of aftermarket amplifiers, we would use these RCAs for our amps, but we're not. I'm going to tell you to never use this plug. Okay, it's a yellow one, it's an audio output plug, and it's got the male side that looks like it would plug into those speaker levels. And I'm going to tell you, 99.99% of the time, this actually doesn't work. The problem is if you have the Alpine system and you put our radio in and it sounds bad, the chances are the factory amplifier has held some EQ settings, and your best bet is to plug that factory radio in, flatten everything, make sure the bass is 0, treble 0, mid is 0, fade is in the center, and everything is in the center, and then plug our radio back in. You won't have any issues. So I know it's in the kit and it's pretty, but don't use it. This is not the one you want to use. This is not the Droid you're looking for. Okay, you want to use the other yellow one that I just used about plugging in the microphone. So always use the RCA one. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to throw it out. And then we have our white plug for a USB 3. This is for whatever you want, guys. Like maybe you got the DVR camera, you're gonna run the DVR camera. If you got the multi-camera interface from us, you would probably plug your multi-cam in here because we got to do the data control through the USB. Or you're gonna do like a, I don't know, you wanna put in a hard drive with a whole bunch of movies and music on it. That would be what we would do. We got our purple plug here. This is our toss link out. So if you're one of those guys with the big audio amps, by the way, check it out. We got videos. We just released amplifiers with a toss link, and I'm going to actually do an install later today of a 5-channel showing the T-harness and how that all works. So I will put that video in the link as well. I'll try and post them at the same time, but that's your toss link out. So you're going to plug in your toss link here, run that down to your DSP or your DSP amplifier, and you'll get that nice high res digital signal. We've got our nav antenna. Now, even if you don't have the iGo navigation, you do need to make sure you install this because the tablet itself needs this. Easiest place really is right inside here on top of one of the air vents. You just take the tape off and stick it right on top there. It can be underneath plastic, but it cannot be underneath metal. So wherever you're mounting it, just make sure that it is not under metal. And if I can get this tape, there we go. We will go ahead and stick that right on that air vent, and it's beautiful and glorious, and it works. So I think that's, oh wait, nope, one more. Forgot about our Wi-Fi antenna. Guys, make sure you put in the Wi-Fi antenna. This is our Wi-Fi antenna, and again, double stick tape, can be behind plastic. You do want to try and keep it away from metal because it will impede how far your radio will pick up its Wi-Fi. And know this, even if you're like, I'm never going to use Wi-Fi on my T-Style, I only want to do CarPlay. CarPlay uses Wi-Fi, so you want to make sure you put this antenna in. So if you don't put this antenna in, wireless CarPlay is not going to work. You're not going to be able to Google, and you're going to call me, and I'm going to tell you you should put in the Wi-Fi antenna. So make sure you put the Wi-Fi antenna in. Super easy. You can actually tape that, stick it right to the back of the air vents there as well, so that it's out of the way. Just like that. we're gonna take my USB 3 and I'm gonna put it in this gentleman's glove box because it's the easiest and most useful. So we're just gonna run this up here. There you see, we have our USB 3 ran, and now we are pretty much at the point where we're gonna plug in the last few plugs, and then we're gonna put in the mounting brackets for the radio, because this is a Jeep. If you got a Jeep and you're not going off-road, then you got what they call that a mall crawler, right? Yeah, a mall crawler. You don't want a mall crawler, you want a rock crawler. And so our radio actually will mount in there. So let me pull those brackets real quick and show you how this works. So here they are right here. So we have these two machined brackets. One says R, one says L, and you guessed it, that means right and left, only I did that backwards. Right and left, no, left and right, there it is. So these are actually gonna mount in the same screws as the factory radio went in. And then you can see how they've got a breakout and then they've got a curve. So they are going to kind of hug the air vent and float right above the dash. Now, if you've got that pretty painted dash and you're kind of concerned it's gonna scratch, no, it's like right there, guys. There's enough room for us to get our screws in and it not hit that plastic. So be careful, like don't be like crazy about mounting these brackets. But you're just gonna put those in there using the same factory screws that we pulled out of the factory radio. Grab my drill. So we're gonna go ahead and mount our two brackets. So this one is left, so you can see it fits right there. I'm gonna go ahead and take that. Bracket number one. Take the right one, line it up the same. Just like that. And now we've got our mounting brackets. So in a account for time, because I want you guys to watch this whole video and not like skip through it. We're gonna speed up the video as I plug things in, and I'm gonna shoot up, because I have software that can do this, I'm gonna shoot up an image of the back of the radio so you can see exactly where every plug is supposed to be on the back of the radio. Much easier to me to just do an image overlay than try to video it. So we're gonna go super fast. I'm gonna plug everything in, and then we're gonna talk about how to mount this. You should have a tool that came in your kit right here with the Allen key that has the special Torx with the safety bit. They're just gonna screw in. Hear me though, go slow, because you don't want to tweak it. One, you may break the touchscreen if you tighten one too tight, or you may tweak it so much that the touchscreen is tweaked too much that it has like faulty, it thinks it's being touched and it's really not. So you just want to be mindful of that. But I'm done talking. Let's speed this up and get everything plugged in, mounted, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so I told you, it's a lot of wires and there's not much room. So just be careful. We're gonna start push these in. You wanna make sure that you're not clipping wires. You wanna try and keep wires as far away from the bottom here. You wanna kind of push them back, get them in there. It's gonna take a little bit of work, but I promise it's worth it. So let's get these wires in. And now when you're trying to get them in there, don't get so focused that you forget to plug in your push to start button either, because I've done it and it sucks. Because you get it all in and then you forgot to push start and it won't turn on, so you have to take it all apart. So get it all in there nice, plug in that push to start, and then keep going. All right, So we got it pushed in, mostly snapped in. So we're gonna go ahead and start taking our torque screws, our locking screws, and go one at a time. Just get them in there just enough so that it bites, so that you can kind of tighten like you would a tire, kind of going across. So I got a little bit of a bite there, and then we'll come across to the other side. And again, we're just gonna turn these so they're hand tight, not super tight, because we don't want to crack nothing or break nothing or tweak nothing. So just kind of be careful as you tighten. Tighten some up to the gaps, but not break it. Pull off our tape, and there she is. My hazards are going on. Let me move my key here. And it's in, guys. This is pretty much what is entailed. Now, once you get it in, you will power it on, and you have to tell the radio what version climate control you have, whether you had dual climate, like the one with the auto, or manual climate. And this is a little embarrassing, guys, but I forgot what mine was, and it's over there. So give me a second. I'm gonna go grab my AC bezel so I know what to program it to. Hold on. And I'm back. And I should have known it was auto, because like I said, it's super loaded. So you can see here on this button, it says auto, or some of yours will have like the dual temperature. Those are all high. So what you do is you turn on your Jeep, we'll let it boot up real quick, and I will tell you what to do next. So it's gonna boot up. Now I know people complain the boot up songs. It's like 15 seconds, guys. It's a computer. It's got to do what it's got to do. It's got to boot up all the programs. It's got to get attached to the CAN bus. It really is genuinely doing a lot. I know it's not quite as fast as we would like, but 15 seconds isn't horrible. And I kind of feel like some of the factory ones take that long to do it as well. But I will say, if you go into reverse before it's booted up, you will have camera. So don't worry that you won't have camera, because you will indeed have a camera. So I don't know how well you can see this. So if you can't see the screen well, I will probably just chop this and then put up a link to the video where I actually did a screen share where you could actually see it. Now, if you can't see it, cool, then we're gonna keep on going. Good? Right on, sweet. So it's in, it's booted up. We are looking for settings. We're gonna hit settings. We're gonna go into system. We're gonna go settings guide, and then car model AC, and then you can see Jeep Wrangler. And right here, make sure your protocol is set to simple. If that protocol goes to anything else, your climate controls and steering wheel controls and all those things won't work. So note, if you happen to have one where you're like, things aren't working, go here, check the HVAC, make sure it's set to simple. And then you can see right here, car info. If you tap that, you either have single zone AC, which is the new version of the, like I think it's a 2022. It looks like it's got the auto, but it doesn't actually have the auto. Or you have manual AC, which is the older one, just normal AC. And then, but we have auto, so we're gonna hit auto, then we're gonna hit OK. It's gonna kick us back to that first page where we picked Jeep. We're gonna hit the back arrow one time, which sends us here to this first page, and we'll hit save and reboot now. And then that's all there is to it. She will then reboot. All of the settings will have been saved, and our T-Style will be working. And guys, that is how you put in a Generation 4 or 5 T-Style radio into your Jeep Wrangler or your Jeep Gladiator. We've got more videos on our YouTube that you can watch about some of the features. Like, check out our video on how to hook up Bluetooth devices, maybe change your launcher. We talk about EQ, we talk about AM, FM, we talk about all this stuff. Check them out. They're called 2-minute how-tos. Usually not 2 minutes, mainly because I talk too much. But that's it, guys. Here you go. Hope this video was helpful, even though I kind of made a couple mistakes. But hey, I'm human. We're good. But we'll see you the next time. Peace out.